India is in the middle of a major youth-led uprising. As we speak, all shops, restaurants, and offices in central Delhi have been ordered to be shut. Internet has been jammed, and paramilitary forces from across the country have been flown into Delhi. This is in response to another night of massive protests led by students and youth demanding the resignation of the country's education minister, Dharmendra Pradhan, over his failure to run the country's centralized exam system smoothly, which has negatively impacted millions of Indian students. And of course, I think for our audience in the United States, they're wondering why is that such a big deal? We're going to get into that because I think it's hard to kind of comprehend what this actually means to an audience maybe outside of India, but that aside, these protests have been led by the so-called Cockroach Janta Party, CJP, along with left groups in the country. They've been protesting for over a month now and holding Pradhan and the right-wing Bharatiya Janata Party and the central government responsible for forcing the government to cancel exams multiple times. And they've actually pointed to the fact that the stress of the exam cancellation has led several students to commit suicide. The movement is demanding not only the resignation of the education minister, but major reforms to the country's education and exam systems, as well as the compensation for families whose loved ones have died by suicide because of this scandal. So to talk about this movement, what's happening in India right now, and what has been happening over the past week where we saw major episodes of police repression, we are very honored to be joined by Dr. John Brittas, who is a member of parliament representing the state of Keralam in the parliament. So John, thank you so much for joining us here at Breakthrough News Live.
Thank you very much. Nice to speak to you. Though you said it's a happy Thursday, for us it's a very sad Thursday. It's one of the darkest Thursdays which we have seen in our history.
Oh dear.
There's a clampdown on our youngsters. We were on the street now. Few minutes back, we all gathered in at Gandhi Memorial. The memorial in the name of Mahatma Gandhi, to send a message to this government that democracy means understanding all of us. Democracy means protecting the institution. Democracy means having empathy for our youngsters. We feel that some good sense will prevail over this government, which has completely turned the capital city into a martial Raj. The police has taken over the capital city. And it's unfortunate, as you rightly said, the metro stations have been closed, the shops and establishments have been closed, and internet has been shut down. And there are looming threats over the youngsters who are sitting at Jantar Mantar, the capital city, that there could be a crackdown. So we felt that the members of the parliament shouldn't be in the parliament discussing things with the government, but we should be on the streets to protect our youngsters, our youth, from this ruthless police action.
And we're very lucky that actually you were able to join us because, as you said, you were just moments ago on the streets in this protest led by members of parliament to demand that the central government stop the repression of this movement. But before we get into what has taken place, this past week with the massive repression, we wanted you to kind of explain to our audience a little bit about this movement. Again, there's been protests. The protests didn't start this week. They've been going on for several weeks. What is it that brought so many young people onto the streets? We know there are several people that even were on hunger strikes. What is the Cockroach Janta Party? And, can you help us understand a little bit about what is happening and what are youth demanding right now on the streets?
Right. I feel that I need to explain the contours of this protest. Actually, the whole idea of Cockroach Party originated from a comment by the Supreme Court Chief Justice that the unemployed youth turned to be activists or journalists. So there was a slur attached to the youth. Suddenly, social media grabbed this slur on the youth and they formed a Cockroach Janta Party. And that is the beginning of it. And as you can understand, there is simmering discontent amongst the youth of this nation. We always claim that India has got a demography which is suitable to us, youth power. But the growing unemployment, the crisis of credibility with regard to the exams, 152 centralized exams have been leaked but no accountability fixed. So there was discontent brewing at the ground level. So you know the dreams of the youngsters when they felt that their dreams are being trampled upon. See, this Cockroach Janta Party ventilated the agony of this youth. There started this movement at the capital city. And we, members of the left parties, and all those associations, unions, student organizations attached to left movement also decided that we should extend our wholehearted support to this movement. Actually, it came up as a organic movement. And now, at this juncture, when we are talking now, we feel that it's a bounden responsibility of the opposition of this country to help them to extend support to these youngsters because there are mounting pressure and tactics on the part of the government to crush it. So we feel that it's called upon to us as our responsibility to stand with the hapless youth who wants to express their agony and also frustration. Now the demands are very reasonable. The first demand is that the education minister, Mr. Dharmendra Pradhan, has to quit. And in any democracy, see, those people who are at the helm of affairs, the responsibility needs to start from the top. Now, the prime minister has put up a strange proposition saying that he will take action against those people who are responsible. But for him, the responsibility starts from the bottom. That is where we have a clash, difference of opinion with the government. Now, as things stand now, see, there was brutality unleashed on the innocent children, innocent students, and many students flew in from different nook and corners of this country and also from abroad. It was such a organic movement, spontaneous movement, and even the protesters reached the gates of the parliament. Actually, this government has been literally shaken. This government survives only on hate and hatred, dividing the people in the name of religion. But these youngsters absolutely spurned every attempt to divide them into different classification classes, boxes of religion and caste. So this is a time when the people of this country wants to go beyond the threshold of all this hate and hatred and the so-called boxes which the government wants to create. And as I told you, even we parliamentarians faced harassment on the roads. We are not even allowed to move. And I could see hundreds of students who have been thrashed, beaten, their skull broken. And we came out of the parliament on 20th, the day of the parliament march. And many of these people were held into police vans in captivity. So just because we are a member of parliament, we forced open many of the police vans and discharged them or released them. See, there are hundreds of students who have been beaten up mercilessly. And even, the rods of the policemen are with nails. So you can see the marks of the nails like that. And the government was unleashing this terror not only by the Delhi police but also the paramilitary forces, which otherwise used to protect the borders of this nation. And this government would not have used such terror tactics against the enemy country, but they have turned against our own youngsters.
Mm.
You know, a major driving force behind these protests is this mismanagement of these national entrance exams in India. And I think for people, especially in the United States, this is really hard to wrap our heads around since we don't have a similar system. So, could you elaborate on what these exams are and maybe talk about the centrality of these exams to survival, to opportunity for young people in India, especially at a time when young people face these record levels of precarity in terms of access to education and employment?
Yeah. See, I know people in the United States may not be grabbing the nuances of this entrance examination. And just to convey what could be the seriousness attached to it. For example, medical entrants who wants to, enter into medical profession. Something like 2.5 million students appear for the entrance examination. Hardly 50,000 people are eligible to study medicine with discounted fee level. Otherwise, people will have to shell out a lot of money in private medical entities. And most of the parents want to make their children either a doctor or an engineer, and their lifetime savings is being kept for that. And these students, for years, slog in entrance coaching centers to cross the threshold of this entrance examination. The unfortunate thing is that the caucus, which is connected with this government, leak the purpose. So those people who can bribe those people get this question purpose in advance. So many a time the credibility of such examines are questioned. So the students thought enough is enough. For example, the last NEET examination. NEET is the qualifying examination to enter into medical profession. And the question paper was leaked. That means something like, say, 2.5 lakh students were on the road, virtually on the road. Their dreams have been shattered, and they were supposed to take the exams again. But it's a turmoil for those people. And it has been happening on all the fronts, whether it is university exam, whether it is engineering exam, where it is an exam to get a employment at the government level. So all plethora of centralized exams have been in the shadow of such scam, and no head was rolled, no responsibility was paid, no investigation, no meaningful investigation was ordered into. So the frustration that was there amongst the youth of this country, it's a large population, 1.4 billion people. So, and majority of them are youngsters. So we call the Gen Z population. So they found it to be very hard to take it. So this movement started on the frustration, distrust, lack of credibility of this government. So I feel that this was waiting. Now, as you know, the tactics of this government has been just in the name of the religion. They think that they can continue in power. So, whenever there is a crisis for this government, they talk in terms of Hindu Muslims like that. And almost all the legacy media echo the line of the government. So, one interesting aspect which I feel that people in the United States should also know that those we call them Godi media, that means laptop media. This media which is supporting the union government, the central government, the federal government, in your terminology, when they used to come to this protest site, they are being jeered at. They are being virtually driven out. So the distrust the legacy media has in this country also has been underscored, underlined by the students.
No, and that's, I think, extremely important. And we've seen that in a lot of protest movements in recent times of how people really understand the role that media is playing. And, just to, before we let you go, I just wanted to ask about how this movement is relating to other protest movements that the Modi central government has been facing. It seems that with Monday's repression and kind of the mass character of this protest on Monday, the violence that people were facing, it seems like it was maybe a turning point from being, just about students to maybe relating to the broader movement against the right-wing government. And again, since Modi has been in office, since he was elected prime minister in 2014, there have been several waves of protests, whether it's the farmers' protests or in JNU, there's a wave of protests, the anti-CAA mobilizations that took place, several waves. But again, the BJP continues to be reelected, whether or not, as we know in the last elections, maybe a little weaker. But can you give us an assessment at this moment of the overall state of organized opposition to Modi and the BJP government? How do the previous waves of protest against the central government relate to this one? And what role is the left playing in driving this opposition?
As you rightly said, one of the most important movement we had earlier was this farmers movement, and the impact also resonated across this nation. And during the last election, Modi actually lost the majority on account of such protest. But there is a disconnect between the ground level politics and the electoral politics. Electoral politics, so much of manipulations happen because at the behest of institutions which are servile to this government, even the election commission is compromised. And we also have got apprehensions about the judiciary, which needs to be the custodian of the people's fundamental rights. But having said that, I feel that this movement has resonated across the nation, and other sections of the people are also aware of it. Though it has been started by the youngsters, I feel that even farmers, people in other segments, even government officers who are all frustrated. They're also into this movement in one way or other way. And another very important vertical is that earlier, many opposition parties had some reservation with regard to this cockroach movement, whether it is a ploy by, say, deep state or someone else is behind it. There has been many theories that have been floated, but now we all have come to the one understanding that this protest, this movement has to be enriched, cherished. The message of it also has to be taken to the different nook and corner of this country. So, in one way, I feel that for the first time during many years, Modi is on back foot. And
Mm.
that's why, for the first time in Parliament, there is a provision of adjournment motion, wherein under a particular clause of the rule of the Parliament, you adjourn the business and then have a full-fledged discussion, and at the end of the discussion you will have voting. So last 25 years the lower house didn't have this adjournment motion admitted, and even in upper house, that is Rajya Sabha, I mean equivalent to your Senate, uh, the so-called adjournment motion discussion was dormant for a decade or so. Now, because Modi, has been pushed to the wall, the government agreed to have a wholesome, full-fledged discussion on the basis of this rule, that is adjournment motion rule, in both the House of the Parliament. So this is the level of Modi's frustration that can be evident now. But now the opposition feels that discussion is not the need of the hour. We need to have action. The responsibility needs to be pinned, and the responsibility should start from the top. The minister who is in charge of all these examinations is not only the medical entrance examination, even the higher secondary, plus two, which you call their higher secondary examination, also was compromised. And you know the number of students who take all these examinations? These are millions, millions. Just add the parents to it or immediate relatives to it. So it could be like, say, 50, 60 million people being directly affected by the mismanagement, corruption, and the compromise that has been happened. And many of the agencies which deal with such entrance examination are intrinsically linked to the ruling party dispensation, the BJP or its father organization, that is RSS. So now the people have realized that. In one way, I appreciate the fact that the movement started at an organic level with youngsters beyond political affiliation. And at the second stage, the political parties have roped it. Now it is for the courts, other institutions also to get emboldened,
Mm.
because democracy can survive only if the institutions also become sensitive enough to discharge their responsibilities. I feel that this protest, which has actually shattered the position, so-called hubris of Narendra Modi or the Prime Minister or the government or the regime, uh, would be injecting some sort of confidence amongst the various institutions. That's my feel. That's my take. But I can tell you one thing. I have been in capital city as a student, as a journalist for last 3.5 decades. I have not seen such a movement with vitality, vigor, determination. And despite, I mean, companies of police being deployed with all the arms and ammunition, these students braved all these obstacles and they reached the corridors of power. Virtually, the government was shaken. That's why, after waiting for 3 weeks, the government was prepared for discussion. Earlier, they thought that ignoring this movement would be the best way of, putting it down. But eventually, the cabinet ministers invited the representatives of these students for discussions. So the hubris has been more or less dented in one way or the other way. And I feel that a country like India, and I always release the statement of Lenin, who says that there are decades when nothing would happen. Decades would pass without any events. But there could be weeks when decades happen. So in Indian politics, I feel that the golden words of Lenin could be having its impact, considering and seeing the movement which is around me. And I am also glad that I am part of it.
That's, I mean, incredible. You came directly from the streets to hear us, to speak with us here on Breakthrough News Live. MP from the Communist Party of India, Marxist John Brittas. Thank you so much for joining us here on Breakthrough News, giving us a report from the ground. And we'll hope that today the repression is not as fierce as it was Monday, and that the students continue to resist. And we'll definitely be following the story.
Thank you very much, BT, for this opportunity to explain what exactly is this protest that's going on. We call India mother of democracy, but the children of this democracy have been thrashed left and right on the streets of Delhi. So this is a sad plight of our democracy. So this is a time for us to think that it is actually a democracy, but the democracy is only as a ritual or in essence.
Amazing. Well, truer words. Every time a country is called the greatest democracy, there's usually something else behind it.
Right.
Thank you so much again, and we'll be speaking with you soon for sure.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.